What if, right now, sitting in a dusty jar of pennies by your front door, there was a coin so overlooked, so ordinary seeming, that you might toss it without a second thought, yet it could hold the power to change your life forever? Imagine a coin worth just a cent, struck decades ago, but secretly carrying a story of rarity, mystery, and astonishing collector demand. That coin is the 1968 Lincoln penny with the San Francisco Mint mark. And unless you know what to look for, you might pass it by without ever realizing the treasure you held between your fingers. Think about it. How many pennies have slipped through your hands in the last week alone? 100? Maybe more. Now imagine that one of them isn't like the others, that one of them has a tiny detail on its surface that could separate it from all the rest. A hidden marker that transforms it from pocket change into a coveted prize. Would you recognize it? Would you even take the time to look? The story of the 1968 penny with the S Mint mark begins at a moment of transformation in American history. The late 60s were turbulent and unforgettable, and even the smallest pieces of currency tell the story of that era. Pennies struck in San Francisco carried a small letter S just below the date, a detail so subtle most people never noticed it. But for collectors, that little letter is everything. Because not all 1968 pennies are created equal. And some carry minting quirks so rare that only a handful have ever been confirmed. Picture this, a family attic, filled with old albums inherited decades ago. A grandparent's coin folder, neatly labeled, untouched for years. You flip through page after page of ordinary coins until one penny catches your eye. It's dated 1968, and just beneath the date, a tiny S. Could this be the one? Could this be the coin that collectors whisper about? The one that occasionally appears in major auction houses and ignites bidding wars? But here's the twist: most 1968 pennies are common. Billions were made. So what separates the ones that matter from the ones you'd spend without hesitation at a vending machine? The answer lies in the details. The sharpness of the strike, clarity of the mint mark, the gleam of a proof finish, or, in some cases, bizarre errors that should never have left the mint at all. And these errors, these accidents of history, are what transform a penny into a prize. Imagine holding a coin that was struck twice, its image doubled and ghost-like. Or a coin where the mint mark was hand-punched in a slightly different place. A minute variation that turns common copper into an object of obsession. What if your coin has one of those flaws? What if the penny in your possession isn't just a penny at all, but one of those incredibly scarce survivors known to command astonishing prices when they surface? Collectors know that most people never bother to check. That's what makes the search thrilling. Somewhere out there, in jars, drawers, and shoeboxes, these overlooked treasures hide in plain sight. And every so often, one surfaces in the most unexpected places. A young collector discovers one while rolling change with their parents. A retiree finds one buried in a safe, long forgotten. A teenager stumbles on one while sorting through their inherited album, not realizing at first the power of the coin in their hand. And then comes the moment of recognition. Can you imagine the rush? To realize that a penny you nearly dismissed as worthless might be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. To feel your heart race as you compare it against known examples, wondering if you've just struck numismatic gold. That's the magic of this coin, because while millions of people overlook it, the truth is that professional grading services and trusted dealers have confirmed that certain 1968 TC's pennies are extraordinary. And they have sold for prices that leave collectors stunned. One such penny, gleaming with its proof-like finish and preserved with near perfection, ignited a frenzy at a prestigious auction. Bidders pushed the price higher and higher, each unwilling to let this scarce treasure slip away. In the end, it didn't sell for hundreds or even just a few thousand. It soared into the five-figure range, shocking even seasoned collectors. And that wasn't a fluke. Time and again, when the finest known examples of this coin appear, they command premium prices, far beyond what most imagine possible for a single cent. But here's the tension. How many times have pennies been spent, dropped, lost, or melted down before anyone realized what they truly were? How many treasures have vanished into obscurity, never to be rediscovered? Could the next missing gem still be out there, waiting in circulation, tucked into a coffee can under someone's bed, or sitting forgotten in a banker's envelope? And if it is, could it be in your collection? The thrill of the hunt is knowing the odds are stacked against you, but the payoff is extraordinary. For every 1,000 ordinary 1968s pennies, there might be one that tells a different story, one that slipped past the mint with a flaw, or one that was struck in such pristine condition that it became a survivor of history. That tiny chance is enough to fuel the dreams of collectors everywhere. Think for a moment about the generations of hands that have held these coins. The cashier in 1968 who gave it out as change without a second glance. The child who stashed it in a piggy bank. The worker who tossed it into a tip jar. Each one unaware of what they carried. Each one unknowingly passing down a secret. And now, decades later, that secret might fall to you. What if you never look? What if you spend that coin tomorrow, never knowing it could have transformed your collection or even your finances? That's the fear that grips collectors, the fear of regret. Because once it's gone, once it slips back into the endless river of circulating change, it might never be found again. And yet, the opportunity is still alive. The 1968's penny continues to appear, albeit rarely, and every discovery proves the hunt is far from over. With each story of a forgotten album revealed, with each report of a jar emptied and inspected, hope reignites. Because the next great find could belong to anyone. It doesn't take wealth or privilege, only curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closer. So the question becomes, will you look? Will you check the dates and mint marks, study the tiny details, and hold each coin up to the light as if it could be the one? Or will you let the chance slip away, convinced it's not worth the effort? Somewhere in the balance of those decisions, fortunes have been made or missed. The highest documented sale of a 1968's Lincoln penny didn't stop at a modest gain. It reached into the tens of thousands, shocking even the most experienced numismatists. Think about that. A single cent, a coin so small you could lose it between couch cushions, commanding a price that rivals a luxury car. If that doesn't stir your imagination, nothing will, and the hunt isn't over. There are still discoveries to be made, still jars waiting to be opened, still safes waiting to be unlocked after decades of silence. Some of the greatest treasures in coin collecting history have been found not in museums, not in curated collections, but in the everyday belongings of ordinary people who simply took the time to look. So the next time you're handed a penny and change, pause before tossing it aside. Look closely. Ask yourself, could this be one of them? Could this be the hidden gem that collectors dream about? Because the truth is, the world's next great discovery might not come from a seasoned expert. Might come from you. The 1968's penny proves that the smallest details can hold the greatest stories, that even the most ordinary objects can conceal extraordinary value. And if history has taught us anything, it's that fortune favors the curious. Imagine reaching into your pocket for spare change and pulling out an ordinary-looking penny, brown, worn, maybe even scratched. You glance at it for a moment before tossing it into a jar. But what if that coin, overlooked and forgotten, was one of the rarest treasures in American numismatics? What if a single cent could secretly be worth more than a brand new car or even a house? Tonight, we're diving into the mystery of the 1969 Lincoln penny with the tiny D mint mark, and why this unassuming coin has captured the imagination of collectors for decades. At first glance, nothing about it screams fortune. It's copper, small, stamped with Lincoln's solemn profile. Millions were minted in Denver that year. But hidden among them are elusive varieties that have become the holy grail for treasure hunters. Some of these coins, when discovered, have stunned the collecting world and commanded eye-watering prices at auction. The shocking part is that most people who ever held one had no idea what they were looking at. They tossed them in drawers, slid them across counters, or let them vanish into circulation. So imagine this: an old mason jar of coins tucked away in the corner of an attic. Dust clings to its lid, and it hasn't been touched since the 70s. Inside, hundreds of pennies rattle. You pour them out, expecting nothing but common copper. And then your eyes land on a 1969 penny with that small D beneath the date. Could this be the one? How would you know? What would you do if the coin in your hand carried a secret that only a handful of trained eyes could recognize? Collectors often talk about discovery stories, and some sound like scenes pulled from movies. A family inherits a safe filled with decades of loose change. They sit cross-legged on the floor, sorting coins for fun, when suddenly one odd penny stops them cold. It looks normal, yet something feels unusual. After a trip to a grading service, they learn it's one of the rarest known. That single coin, once rattling among thousands of its kind, now becomes a life-changing piece of history. What if that same discovery could happen to you tonight in your own home? The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies across the 60s, but among the common floods of copper, rare varieties slipped through. coins with doubled lettering, misaligned dies, or subtle errors only seen under magnification. In the case of the 1969 penny, one dramatic double-die version has become legendary, with bold, doubled inscriptions visible on the obverse. These coins were so scarce that only a handful are confirmed to exist. Major auction houses have documented sales where collectors battled fiercely, driving prices into the stratosphere. And yet, it all starts with a coin no bigger than your thumbnail. One you could have walked past 100 times without a second thought. The suspense is what makes this story so irresistible. How many people unknowingly spent these coins at diners, gas stations, or vending machines? How many rare treasures vanished into circulation before anyone realized their value? It's the fear of regret that keeps collectors searching. Because for every lucky discovery, countless others were lost forever. And here's where the tension builds. Most 1969B pennies are worth only face value. They pile up in change, neglected and forgotten. But when a rare doubled die shows itself, everything changes. Professional grading services have authenticated these rarities, and trusted dealers speak of them in almost hushed tones. They aren't just coins, they're time capsules. Flukes of minting history that slipped through the cracks and survived against all odds. Picture holding one in your hand. The date looks different. The letters seem to echo. Your pulse quickens. You compare it to a regular penny, and the differences begin to scream at you. What would you feel in that moment? Excitement, disbelief, a rush of adrenaline as you realize you might be staring at a coin worth tens of thousands, maybe more. The scarcity of these coins is what drives their legendary status. Only a handful have ever been confirmed. Each new discovery shocks the collecting world and fuels the hope that more remain hidden. Collectors scoured jars, bags, and inherited albums, driven by the tantalizing possibility that another one might emerge. And every time a new example crosses an auction block, the frenzy reignits. Over the years, dramatic sales have made headlines in numismatic circles. Imagine a simple penny commanding more than the cost of a new car. Imagine another bringing in sums closer to what you'd expect from fine art than pocket change. At one major auction, a stunning example changed hands for more than $300,000. 1 cent struck in 1969, forever transforming the fortune of its finder. But the thrill isn't just about money. For collectors, it's about uncovering a story no one else knew existed. Every rare coin carries whispers of history, the hands it passed through, the decades it survived, the near misses where it could have been lost forever. When you hold one, you're not just holding copper. You're holding a mistake that escaped the mint, a survivor that somehow reached you, waiting to be recognized. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you checked the pennies lying around your home? The jar on the counter, the drawer in the kitchen, the change that fell between couch cushions. Most people never look closely, and that's the secret. Most collectors overlook this coin. That's why discoveries still happen today. That's why the dream of the next jackpot penny feels so alive. Think about the ripple effect of finding one. You could bring it to a trusted expert, watch it slide into a protective holder, and feel the weight of validation when you're told it's genuine. Then comes the auction, where seasoned bidders compete, each driving the price higher. And as the gavel finally drops, you realize the unthinkable. A penny you almost ignored has just rewritten your future. What if that penny is already in your possession? What if it's sitting in a safe, or quietly waiting in a jar you haven't touched in years? And what if, by the time you finally look, the chance is gone, spent, misplaced, or overlooked forever? This is the intoxicating allure of coin collecting. It's not just about wealth. It's about the thrill of discovery, the chase for something hidden, the romance of holding history in your hand. And for the 1969D Lincoln cent, that thrill is unmatched. A coin so common, yet so elusive. It teeters on the edge between ordinary and extraordinary. So tonight, before you dismiss that pile of pennies as worthless, take a closer look. Examine the dates, the mint marks, the details most people never notice. Because tucked away among them could be the coin that changes everything. The 1969D double die penny is a reminder that treasures still exist in plain sight, that history can hide in your pocket, and that the next legendary discovery may not be locked in a museum. It may already belong to you. Every coin carries a story, but few stories twist and turn the way this one does. To most people, the penny is the humblest coin in circulation. The one we leave behind on countertops or toss into a jar without a thought. But for collectors, the 1970 penny minted in Denver carries a kind of hidden drama. A mix of mystery, human error, and sheer chance that makes it one of the most compelling coins of the modern era. What if the penny rattling around in your desk drawer right now holds that very secret? Would you even recognize it if you saw it? To understand why this particular year and mint mark matters, you have to imagine the scene in 1970, the United States. Mint was pushing out millions upon millions of Lincoln cents. The Denver facility was under pressure to keep up with demand. Dies were prepared, coins struck, and bags shipped out across the country. But in the chaos of mass production, oddities sometimes slipped through. Minute errors, double impressions, strange varieties, subtle quirks. Most people never noticed, and most never cared. But decades later, collectors began to spot anomalous small, details that separated one coin from the countless others that looked the same. Now picture this. You inherit an old coffee tin from your grandfather's garage. Inside are hundreds of coins tossed in over decades. Most are common, but as you sift through them, your fingers catch on a dark brown cent with the date 1970 and a small D below. You almost toss it back, but something about the shine, the spacing of the letters, makes you pause. What if this is one of those rare survivors? What if this coin, forgotten in a tin for half a century, could be the one collectors are desperate to find? The beauty of coin collecting is that treasures hide in plain sight. And with the 1970 Denver penny, The difference between an ordinary scent and a historic piece is often invisible to the untrained eye. Some are struck with doubled designs, where the lettering seems to echo itself ever so slightly. Others carry minute variations that professional graders and auction houses instantly recognize as extraordinary. The average person would glance past it, but to someone who knows, that tiny clue is like finding a signature in the sand. Here's the twist that makes your pulse quicken. Only a handful of these extraordinary coins are known to exist. The Denver Mint produced enormous numbers of pennies, but the chance combination of die variety and condition narrowed the field to a sliver, and scarcity is everything. Imagine the difference between having a common penny, worth a cent, and one of those few survivors that has set records under the bright lights of an auction stage. Which one is hiding in your change right now? Collectors whisper stories of sudden discoveries. A coin pulled from a dusty album inherited from an uncle. A penny spotted by a teenager searching through a roll from the bank. A coin jar cleaned out during a move where a single overlooked cent changed the entire value of the collection. These aren't fairy tales. They've happened. Each time, the discovery has sparked bidding wars among collectors, with prices climbing into the thousands, and in a few cases, crossing the threshold into staggering five-figure territory. But the suspense doesn't stop there, because one particular example in pristine condition once stunned the numismatic world by crossing into the six-figure range at a major auction. Imagine the shock of holding what you thought was a penny, only to learn it was worth more than a new car. But here's the cruel reality. For every collector who finds one, countless others pass them by. The 1970 Denver penny often looks completely ordinary, worn, dull, maybe scratched. Most people toss it into circulation, never suspecting it could be the key to a hidden fortune. That's the fear that gnaws at coin hunters. How many of these rare cents were unknowingly spent on bubblegum or coffee? How many slipped through the cracks before anyone realized their true worth? So the real question becomes, how do you know if you're holding one of the rare ones? The truth is, the signs are subtle, almost invisible unless you know exactly what to look for. Collectors obsess over the details. The tiniest doubling on the date, a faint distortion in the lettering, the crispness of the strike, and condition is everything. A coin that's been spared heavy wear can transform its value exponentially. Professional grading services exist for this very reason, to authenticate and certify what the naked eye might miss. Without them, you could easily overlook a treasure, or worse, mistake a common cent for a rarity. Now imagine this nightmare. You stumble on a 1970 penny in an old drawer. You shrug, dismiss it, and spend it without a thought. Weeks later, you see headlines about one selling for tens of thousands at auction. Your stomach sinks. That could have been yours. That's the urgency collectors feel, the gnawing fear of regret. How many people have had a 1970 Denver cent slip through their fingers because they didn't bother to check? But let's flip the scenario. Imagine you're careful, curious, patient. You take a second look at that old coin. You notice something unusual about the lettering, something off about the date. You set it aside, You research, maybe even consult a trusted dealer, and then comes the moment of truth, the confirmation that you've uncovered one of the ultra-rare survivors. Your heart pounds, your hands shake, because you've just turned pocket change into a life-altering discovery. This is why the hunt never ends. Collectors know that the 1970 Denver penny could be hiding anywhere, in the jars tucked away in kitchen cabinets, in bankrolls waiting to be opened, in forgotten albums gathering dust in attics. Each coin is a lottery ticket of history, a silent witness to decades gone by. And every so often, one of them steps out of obscurity and into the spotlight, rewriting someone's fortune in an instant. The climax of this story is the number that still stuns collectors. At one of the most prestigious auction houses, an immaculate 1970 Denver penny graded at the highest level once sold for well over $100,000. That's not a rumor. That's the power of scarcity, condition, and collector demand converging in a single moment. And that means the humble cent in your pocket could, in the rarest cases, carry the weight of a house, a college tuition, even a retirement fund. So ask yourself, have you really looked at your pennies? Have you turned them in your hand, studied the dates, searched for the tiny mint marks? Or have you let them slip past, dismissing them as worthless copper? Because the truth is, the difference between a fortune and a forgotten cent could be nothing more than a second glance. The story of the 1970 Denver penny isn't just about money. It's about history, chance, and the thrill of discovery. It's about the idea that treasures hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with curiosity and persistence to uncover them. And it's about the sobering truth that most people never will. That's what makes collecting such a captivating pursuit, the constant tension between what is common and what is priceless. So the next time you hear the jingle of coins in your pocket, pause. Take a closer look at the humble penny, because somewhere out there, another 1970 Denver cent is waiting to be found. And who knows? The story of this coin begins in an era of change. The year 1971 marked a time of shifting culture, economic uncertainty, and small details in everyday objects that most people never thought twice about. Pennies clinked together in pockets, children saved them in piggy banks, and cash registers overflowed with them. They were just pennies, right? But among the billions struck, a small number hold a mystery so compelling that decades later, collectors are still searching feverishly for them. Most 1971 Lincoln cents were minted in two main facilities, and nearly all carry the small letters to prove it. But then there are those rare pieces with no mint mark at all. At first glance, it seems like nothing, just another brown coin with Lincoln's profile. But look closer, and you'll see what isn't there. No small letter beneath the date. Just a clean, empty space. And that tiny absence has turned ordinary change into a treasure hunt that still grips collectors to this day. Imagine opening a dusty old coin album passed down from your grandfather, flipping through the cardboard slots filled with tarnished copper. You glance at the dates: 1969, 1970, 1971, and then you notice it. That date looks strange. Something's missing. Your pulse quickens, your hands tremble. Could it be? This is how legends are born, not with fanfare, but with a quiet discovery when least expected. Why does a missing mint mark matter so much? Because it signals a mistake, an accident of production that slipped past the watchful eyes of the mint. In a sea of uniformity, these errors stand out like whispers from the past, tokens of imperfection in a system designed for precision. And when something so ordinary suddenly becomes extraordinary, collectors chase it with unrelenting passion. But here's the twist. Most people who hold these coins never realize what they've got. They spend them at gas stations, drop them into vending machines, or forget them at the bottom of a jar. What if the penny in that old coffee tin on your shelf has been quietly gaining attention among experts, while you've dismissed it as worthless? How many fortunes have already passed through unknowing hands? Professional grading services have confirmed the authenticity of these elusive 1971 no mint mark pennies. When authenticated, their value rises dramatically, especially if the coin has survived the years in pristine condition. Collectors aren't just after the date, they crave sharp details, clean surfaces, and the unbroken story told by the coin's condition. Every scratch, every blemish can change the outcome. And yet, even with imperfections, the rarity itself carries immense weight. Picture an auction room. Collectors sit forward in their seats, eyes fixed on the podium. A 1971 no mint mark Lincoln cent appears on the screen, gleaming under bright lights. The bidding starts modestly, but within seconds, paddles shoot up, and the numbers climb higher, faster. The hum of the crowd thickens into electricity. For most coins, the room might stay calm, but for this piece, everyone knows how scarce it is. Everyone knows they might not see another example for years. The final hammer falls, and the crowd exhales. A coin once worth a single cent has just commanded thousands. How many are left undiscovered? No one truly knows. Only a handful have surfaced in top condition, but countless others may still be hidden away, unrecognized. Maybe they sit in dusty mason jars in attics, or inside a child's forgotten coin collection from decades past. Maybe they're buried in bank rolls, waiting for a sharp-eyed collector to crack them open. And here's the haunting part: what if you've already spent one? The danger of dismissing pennies as worthless change is real. Collectors whisper about missed chances. Stories of coins cashed in for face value only to later discover they could have been worth thousands. That sense of regret lingers like a ghost over every pile of copper coins. It's why serious treasure hunters never pass up a chance to look carefully, to scrutinize every date, every tiny marking. Because once it's gone forever. There's a saying in the collecting world: rarity is king. But rarity alone doesn't tell the whole story. It's the combination of rarity, condition, and historical intrigue that fuels obsession. The 1971 no mint mark cent has all three. It's scarce, it captures the imagination of error collectors, and it embodies the thrill of the hunt. It's the kind of coin that reminds us why people fall in love with collecting in the first place, the possibility that a fortune could hide in plain sight. What if tonight, instead of tossing your change onto the dresser, you sat down and really looked at it? What if your ordinary evening turned into the discovery of a lifetime? What if the penny you've ignored for years suddenly revealed itself as one of the rarest coins of its kind? That's the tension that keeps collectors awake at night, checking rolls, combing through piles, never losing hope. Over the years, major auction houses have confirmed the power of this coin. Records show that examples in pristine condition have commanded prices reaching into the tens of thousands. These aren't speculative claims, they're documented moments where bidders put their money where their passion is. And those numbers only fuel the frenzy. Because if one penny can bring that much, what might the next one bring? Scarcity creates urgency. Imagine standing at a crossroads, holding a coin that only a handful of people in the world will ever own. Do you recognize its significance? Or do you let it slip through your fingers? That's the razor's edge collectors live on, the constant balance between discovery and loss. And every time a new example surfaces, it reignites the chase for all who dream of finding one. Some say the thrill lies not just in the value, but in the story. To hold a coin like this is to hold a fragment of history, a mistake immortalized in copper, a reminder that even the most routine processes can give birth to miracles. It transforms the way you look at every penny. No longer small change, but potential keys to a hidden treasure chest scattered across the country. What if, right now, your coin jar is worth far more than you've ever imagined? What if your family's old keepsake box holds a prize greater than gold? It's easy to dismiss these thoughts as wishful thinking, but history shows otherwise. Time and again, coins thought worthless have surfaced to shock the collecting world. And each time, it's someone ordinary who makes the extraordinary find. So the next time you hear the clink of copper against copper, let it remind you, there's mystery hiding in the smallest of places. Don't let impatience or disbelief blind you to opportunity. Because once in a while, a penny isn't just a penny. Once in a while, it's a ticket into numismatic legend, and here's the climax. Among all documented sales, one particular 1971 no mint mark Lincoln cent, preserved in stunning condition, has reached over $20,000 at auction. From 1 cent to tens of thousands, an unimaginable leap, all because of a tiny missing detail. That is the power of rarity. That is the lure of the hunt. So before you dismiss the pennies lying around your home, take a second look, peer closely at that date. Examine the space beneath the numbers. You never know what might be staring back at you.